On the other hand, we know the other parts about Tim. So I think they're different in a lot of ways. One thing is that Timothy came up from West Point and the academic elite of Harvard, and he was from a much different cultural place than Terrence was. And Terrence grew up in a different era where there was a lot of challenge to the culture because it was clearly not working, and these people were beginning to hit the road and leave their homes and run away and create new life stories that were not going to be an extension of their parents. And that was mostly a youth revolution. And youths need leaders, and they need older brothers. And there was Ram Dass, who is a beautiful, wonderful, incredible being that came out of that same history and nested narratives that Timothy did, but took a different slant. You know, he opened his heart real wide. It took him a long time to go through a bunch of weird experiments, but he ended up being very happy to serve people, and he understood that loving service was the greatest experience a human can have, and not just being a wisecracking smartass that gets paid to do drugs like Timothy ended up being. You actually have a chance to love and serve your species if you open your eyes to it. We all do. Mm-hmm. So there were all sorts of... I was there with... I sat and smoked pot with Timothy Leary and Terrence McKenna, and I know that Terrence regarded it as both an honor and a burden to be considered the next Timothy Leary.
Yeah.
They both knew that was true. They made jokes about it, like, what kind of nightmare would you want to leave on somebody but to tell them they're the next Timothy Leary? That's not a happy place to be. Timothy was on the lam a long time and spent most of that time being afraid of going to jail, and did go to jail. And, you know, it wrecked his family, and he led a very weird life at the end. So
yeah,
a lot of pressure on those guys, like I said earlier.
Yeah. So let's talk about just kind of the nuts and bolts of the movie. How it's not quite fully baked yet. How close are you to putting this all together and putting it out for public consumption?
Well, it's pretty much done, except for I have to put in the new revisions that I've done from screening it a few times in Austin and Dallas, and with you and some other folks that have seen it. I've made some technical adjustments, and I have to make final decision on some of the music that's involved in it. But it's pretty much done, and just needs minor, adjustments and filling out the credits and that kind of stuff. I expect it'll be released in some way in September or October, depending on what kind of distribution we decide to do. We being me and a couple of friends that are just helping me release this movie I made entirely by myself, with the exception of music that I'm using from friends and people that I know from this work before. And I made it without any debt. I made it out of my own money, my own time, my own equipment. And now I'm getting help from people that are helping me do some of the technical stuff on the web design and applications. We expect to put it out as an an iPad application, a desktop application. We hope to distribute it digitally in a lot of different ways. One thing I've really thought about just the last couple of days, which I don't think is the right project to maybe do this, but it could have been if I'd have thought about it earlier. Somebody should start thinking about these kind of things more, is getting sponsorship where people simply pay you to release the movie and you make it completely free, so that as many people can see it in the shortest amount of time as possible. When YouTube first started, people immediately started posting thousands of versions of Alien Dreamtime cut up different ways, and people just did it out of love for the experience. Over and over again, they would post these movie clips up and send them around to all their friends, and it became a viral, one of the first viral media events that really stuck in YouTube. And there were millions of uploads and views. And a lot of people were like, wow, you didn't make any money off of that. Well, you're only going to live so long, and you only need so much money, and there are an incredible number of wealthy people that love psychedelics. So there's a way to make that not a big problem. But what's more important is that people were able to see it. So it got passed around and passed around and passed around. And if I could, I would just get some rich people in the psychedelic community to just buy the sponsorship of this movie and put it out there for free in every possible format, as easy to get as possible, and that so people can share it and do the Facebook stuff and do the whole any social media thing to accommodate it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take that much to make it all available as a browser-based HTML5 packaging strategy. There are ways to do this, and there are ways to do it for pretty cheap, other than just paying for somebody's time, which is my time in this case. But this model should be applicable to all sorts of new projects. Mm-hmm. That you don't want to have to put that barrier of making a consumer decision between your art and the people it's intended for. And there are a lot of people that I want to see my work that are not very involved in the cash economy. They're really not involved in credit cards and one-click purchasing on the internet. They're people that are way off the media grid that I want to know about my work, because I think it's important, and I think it's a kind of media that becomes a rallying point for people to show their friends, have dinner together, smoke a bunch of pot, and watch this challenging, interesting new movie. That works real good for Americans. So I want people that don't have money to be able to see this as well. And there are a lot of them out there, and there are people that are trying to invent a way of living where you don't have to participate in the credit card world.
More and more each day, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you view the collapse of the economy, which we're all witnessing as a slow-motion train wreck right now. Let's say there are a few people out there that are listening to the show right now, and they're psychonauts, and they have money, and they want to support you and maybe make this dream a reality. Where do they go to find out about the film?
Right now, I would say, before the movie's released, the best place is Lux McKenna, L-U-X McKenna, M-C-K-E-N-N-A, luxmckenna.com, and there's a contact link there. There's a direct email link to me, and it's quite easy. If you want to get to me more directly, you can send it to Ken, K-E-N, my first name, at Lux44, Lux44.com. Ken at Lux44.com. So the Lux McKenna site that I reference also has some of these other new media examples that are attached to the project. It's currently a demo, a prototype, a sandbox, but there are several pieces that I've already developed that are there for people to see. There's a complete ebook that's like a coffee table book designed with quotes of Terrence's, matched with collages that I've done, that sort of stuff. There's several projects in there that I'm sure your audience would be interested in. There's a couple of Tumblr blogs that I've built around neo-psychedelia and specifically about McKenna. So there's a lot of stuff there people can check out.
Great. Awesome stuff. Now, I wanted to just circle back, and my sense of this, Ken, is that this film really, in some ways, closes a chapter in your life.
Oh, undoubtedly, yeah.
You know?
Making Alien Dreamtime and releasing that into the alternative culture radically changed my life and spun me out of my everyday world of living in San Francisco. And it happened at the same time that my wife and I are having our first child, who appears as the last frames in Alien Dreamtime as a 2-day-old baby. And let's just say that parenting by itself would be enough of a tsunami in anybody's life to cause them to reposition themselves for a few years. So we moved to Texas, where we had family support, family connections that I had from being in graduate school there in the art community and the local alternative culture. And slowly learned, I was not a very fast learner, but I learned that it was dangerous to run around Texas talking about how cool it was to get high on magic mushrooms and how much I love smoking pot. So personally, it was a challenge to try to disappear into an alternative role where I wasn't exposing my family to unnecessary threat. So all that changed a couple of years ago with this experience that I had that I told earlier about with Terrence at a camping site in Colorado. And I've since then been devoting myself to making this movie and to figuring out what kind of movie it needed to be. And it's catalyzed by a bunch of recordings we did. My wife, Britt Willeen, Terrence and I, sometimes a couple other people might show up to help. But we would sit around in our garage studio and just record long segments of talking together while we were smoking pot, tripping on mushrooms. And for a while we experimented with microdosing with LSD, where we would take these minute doses on an everyday basis for a few days, several days at a time, and work on projects. So I went back to that tape inventory and dug it out of deep storage and began to go through these tapes to find these moments where Terrence would get on a roll and start talking about some specific subject. And I extracted a bunch of that material and separated it by each piece is its own theme. And then I illustrate these old, grainy, high-8 videos that are very low resolution and really full of static and crazy computer effects that are real low res. And I isolated those as the catalyst for very complex animated collages using motion graphics, is what they call it in the industry, where there are innumerable layers of images and associational material animated around the seed video of Terrence talking about the Rosicrucian conspiracy, or the role of the similarity of DMT experiences to death, or life in the Imaginatrix from the clip we listened to earlier. And I built a separate little movie around each topic, and that's the format of the film. And it's about an hour long. One thing I want to say about possible distribution is there's this network of people involved with Reality Sandwich that they call spore groups, like fungal spores. And you can find out about it by going to the Volver.com, Volver.net website, or from realitysandwich.com. And there are groups of people that meet in all the major cities, in 40 different cities, and they meet at the same time of the month, and they all just focus on a particular subject, like permaculture. And these groups are becoming really important in my own personal life as a way to meet friends and to find the others, as McKenna said, that want to collaborate in these projects and want to take things a little further, and just a social network. So I think that's something worth checking out for your viewers and listeners to get connected with some of these issues. That's a good place to find out when there are activities happening, and to meet new people that are doing what you think is important.
Yeah, absolutely, and good resources. So I guess rounding this off, Ken, and I really feel like that you are going to be moving. I wouldn't say beyond the shadow of Terrence McKenna, because I don't think there's a shadow relationship going on here at all. I mean, it's a very loving, collaborative relationship. But I think that this film really is, again, it's a bow tie. It's around your experience with Terrence in a particular time, and it feels to me like the next phase of your life is really going to be about you and your ideas and your relationship to the material that we covered here in the show today. And I think that this could be a very exciting time for you. I know it's kind of a white knuckler, and you feel like you're out there, on your own, but you've got some really, important and powerful things to share with people. And I hope that you can, continue to find the courage and the love and the support to continue on your journey, because I think you've got something really pertinent to share.